It began long before the beaches of Normandy, long before the bitter winter in the Ardennes, and even before the first American boots landed on North African soil. It began in the 1930s, during a time when the United States military found itself facing a harsh truth. If another global war erupted, American infantry would be dangerously outgunned. European powers were rearming at a frightening speed, and across the Atlantic, totalitarian regimes were preparing for a conflict unlike anything the world had ever seen. Yet the United States Army was still equipped largely with bolt-action rifles. Slow, outdated, and technologically behind the curve. In those tense pre-war years, a quiet revolution was taking shape. It was happening not in a battlefield, but in workshops and testing grounds. There, a Canadian-born firearms designer named John Garand was turning what many believed impossible into reality. A reliable, durable, semi-automatic rifle that every American soldier could carry. While the militaries of Germany, Italy, and Japan continued to rely on bolt-action weapons with limited firepower, Garand envisioned a future where American infantrymen could fire 8 accurate rounds as fast as they could pull the trigger. As tensions around the world escalated, the United States Army began to realize that Garand's invention was not just innovative, it was transformative. When the rifle was officially adopted in 1936 as the M1 Garand, it became the first standard-issue semi-automatic rifle ever fielded by a major military power. At the time, it was a bold leap. No other nation had anything like it. But even then, few understood the scale of what this weapon would eventually mean for the war to come. By 1941, as Europe burned and Axis forces expanded, American factories began shifting to wartime production. The crisis at Pearl Harbor made everything immediate and urgent. Now the United States had to arm millions of soldiers who would soon deploy across continents. And at the heart of that mobilization was the M1 Garand, a weapon that would define the American infantry. Its design was revolutionary. With an internal 8-round clip, a gas-operated system, and outstanding reliability under mud, snow, heat, and sand, it gave American troops something no Axis soldier enjoyed: overwhelming, sustained firepower. While a German infantryman chambered a single bolt-action round at a time, and while a Japanese soldier reloaded small 5-round stripper clips into an older design, an American rifleman could unleash a rapid series of shots that completely changed the pace of combat. And so, with war now fully underway, the United States began one of the most ambitious mass production efforts in human history. Factories that once produced civilian goods were retooled almost overnight. Industrial giants like Springfield Armory and Winchester shifted to non-stop wartime schedules. Skilled machinists, young apprentices, and even women new to the workforce stepped into roles that were critical to arming the nation. Together, they produced rifles with incredible speed and precision. Over the course of the war, more than 5 million M1 Garands would roll off assembly lines, an achievement that Axis intelligence analysts consistently underestimated. As American divisions prepared for combat in Europe and the Pacific, the M1 became more than a rifle. It became a symbol of confidence, proof that the United States not only had strong soldiers, but also the industrial muscle to equip them with tools far superior to anything their enemies carried. The soldiers who first received the M1 in training camps from Georgia to California quickly understood its value. Drill instructors emphasized marksmanship and rapid, accurate firing. Recruits found the rifle surprisingly controllable despite its power, and they respected the reliability that would soon prove itself on distant front lines. Many wrote home describing the weapon as the rifle that will win this war. Some even said it felt like holding a piece of advanced technology from the future. When American forces finally entered major combat in North Africa in 1942, the M1 Garand faced its first real test. German troops armed with the Kar 98K bolt-action rifle discovered to their shock that firefights against American infantry were suddenly different. Instead of brief bursts of fire followed by long pauses to reload, American rifle squads maintained relentless pressure. 8 fast shots, a ping from the empty clip, and then another 8. In the chaos of battle, this constant stream of fire stunned German units and often forced them into defensive positions more quickly than they anticipated. As the war moved from North Africa to Sicily and then into mainland Italy, the M1 Garand gained a reputation for reliability under harsh conditions. Mud, rain, dust, and rough terrain did little to stop it. Soldiers praised its ability to keep firing in moments when enemy rifles jammed or froze. Axis officers noted in their reports that American infantry attacks were backed by unusually heavy rifle fire, something that shaped their defensive strategies. But the true test came on the beaches of Normandy. On D-Day, as American troops stormed Omaha and Utah Beach, the M1 Garand allowed riflemen to deliver sustained covering fire while advancing across open sand under machine gun fire. The rate of fire helped suppress German positions long enough for small units to push inland. Veterans later recounted that without the M1's rapid engagement capability, their survival chances would have been far lower. Once the breakout from Normandy began, the full advantage of the rifle became undeniable. In the hedgerows of France, where close-quarters combat was frequent and brutal, the rapid semi-automatic action gave American squads a distinct upper hand. German units repeatedly complained that they were being overwhelmed by the volume of small arms fire alone. The rifle became infamous among Axis troops. They often believed American infantry carried more automatic weapons than they actually did, simply because the M1 delivered such consistent fire at range. As the Allies advanced toward Germany, the M1 Garand entered some of the harshest conditions of the war. During the Battle of the Bulge, temperatures dropped so severely that weapons across all armies froze in place. Yet the M1 continued to function with reliability that earned the admiration of soldiers in the field. Its wooden stock expanded and contracted with moisture, but the internal mechanism remained steady. Riflemen facing waves of German counterattacks relied heavily on the Garand's stable and accurate firing in freezing darkness. Meanwhile, across the world in the Pacific, Marines and Army infantrymen carried the same rifle through jungles, volcanic terrain, and tropical storms. Against Japanese troops who often relied on bayonet charges or rapid flanking assaults, the M1's stopping power played a decisive role. A single, well-placed shot could halt an enemy advance, and a sudden burst of multiple rounds could break the momentum of a charge. Even in dense vegetation, where visibility was low and engagement ranges short, the rifle proved devastating. As word of its performance spread, Axis troops began referring to it with a mix of frustration and respect. German soldiers in particular described it as the semi-automatic rifle that makes the American infantry fight like a machine gun squad. Despite their own advanced weapon designs later in the war, such as the Sturmgewehr 44, Germany simply could not produce enough of them to change battlefield dynamics. The vast majority of their troops still carried older bolt-action rifles. By late 1944, the M1 Garand had become a defining factor in infantry engagements. It didn't just give American troops more firepower, it changed their tactics. Squads became more flexible, aggressive, and capable of responding to sudden threats with precision and speed. The rifle's accuracy at medium range allowed American forces to dominate open fields, ridgelines, and urban streets alike. This superiority, combined with powerful artillery and air support, meant that Axis infantry were constantly fighting at a disadvantage. As 1945 approached and the war neared its end, the scale of American production stunned observers worldwide. More than 5 million M1 Garands existed, enough to arm an entire generation of soldiers and still leave reserves for training and defense. The weapon would go on to serve in Korea, early Vietnam, and the armies of multiple Allied nations. It became a legend among military historians and firearm experts, praised for its engineering and battlefield performance. But during World War II, the rifle's true legacy was much simpler. It gave the average American soldier the firepower to stand firm in the face of some of the most formidable armies ever assembled. It allowed ordinary men, farmers, factory workers, students, mechanics, to fight with a level of confidence and capability unmatched by their enemies. And for countless Axis infantrymen, the sound of those rapid shots echoing across forests, fields, and city streets was unforgettable. America's M1 Garand didn't just fire bullets, it fired opportunity, survival, and victory into the hands of the soldiers who carried it. It embodied the industrial strength of a nation determined to win and the engineering brilliance of a design that was decades ahead of its time. It was more than a rifle. It was a symbol of American resolve, one that would help defeat the Axis powers and shape the modern world. As the M1 Garand spread through every American infantry division, its impact on Axis troops became increasingly visible on the battlefield. German and Italian units, who had been accustomed to facing bolt-action rifles similar to their own, suddenly found themselves outgunned by a weapon that could deliver a constant stream of accurate semi-automatic fire. Reports from German officers frequently described American infantry units as firepower machines, capable of maintaining a rate of fire that overwhelmed advancing or defending Axis formations before they could even properly engage. The difference in combat rhythm was staggering. A German soldier armed with a Kar 98K had to lift the rifle, fire, drop the rifle slightly, cycle the bolt, aim again, and then fire a second shot. An American soldier using the Garand could fire 8 rounds in the same time span with minimal interruption. Entire squads of American troops could lay down a volume of fire that appeared to many Axis troops to be coming from a much larger force. This illusion of superior numbers became a psychological weapon as much as a physical one. The famous metallic ping of the Garand's en-bloc clip, heard when the rifle ejected the empty clip after the 8th shot, became one of the most recognized sounds of the war. Some Axis propaganda suggested that the ping revealed to enemy soldiers that an American rifleman was temporarily unarmed. But veterans on all sides later acknowledged that this was mostly a myth. In real combat, the chaos, explosions, shouting, and overlapping rifle fire made such a small sound almost impossible to hear. Additionally, Garand-equipped soldiers were trained to reload rapidly, often inserting a new clip in 1 or 2 seconds. Many squads even coordinated reloads so that no moment of vulnerability ever existed. On the beaches of Normandy, the Garand proved to be one of the most reliable weapons of D-Day. Despite sand, seawater, and debris, the rifle continued firing with minimal malfunctions, a testament to its robust design. Axis troops, expecting to pin down American forces during their landing, were shocked as entire units pushed inland with relentless semi-automatic fire, suppressing machine gun nests and clearing trenches with a level of speed and aggression that had not been seen in earlier European campaigns. In the dense hedgerows of France, the rifle again demonstrated its battlefield adaptability. While German soldiers often struggled with slow bolt-action reloads in close-quarters engagements, American infantrymen simply raised their Garands, fired multiple shots rapidly, and dominated fights under 100 meters. After-action reports repeatedly showed that American units won a disproportionate number of engagements simply because they could shoot more, faster, and without the mechanical delay imposed by bolt cycling. On the Eastern Front, German soldiers often compared their battles against the Soviets, who primarily used Mosin-Nagant bolt actions, with their encounters against American Garand-equipped troops. Many Wehrmacht soldiers later wrote that fighting the Americans felt entirely different because the speed of American rifle fire forced German units to take cover more often and halted maneuvers before they could materialize. It was impossible to raise your head, one German veteran wrote, because an American squad with Garands fired like a machine gun section. Axis military intelligence units studied captured Garands and sent detailed reports to High Command. They concluded that the rifle gave U.S. infantry a technological and tactical advantage that could not be matched without producing a competing semi-automatic weapon. Germany attempted to counter this with the Gewehr 43, but it could never match the Garand in durability, mass production, or battlefield reliability. The German High Command was frustrated that the American industrial machine was capable of manufacturing millions of rifles so quickly, while German factories, under constant bombing and material shortages, struggled to produce even modest quantities. In Italy, during the Long Mountain Campaign, American infantrymen used the Garand's power to suppress enemy snipers and fortified positions. The rugged terrain demanded a rifle that could endure mud, rain, and extreme temperature shifts. The Garand performed so well in these conditions that many German soldiers assumed it must have been specially engineered for mountainous environments. In reality, its success was simply the result of sound mechanical engineering and intensive American field testing. Throughout the Pacific Theater, the Garand gave American Marines and Army infantry a critical advantage against Japanese forces. Japanese soldiers often launched sudden, aggressive charges from concealment, attempting to overwhelm positions through sheer momentum. Against bolt-action rifles, these tactics could succeed. Against squads armed with Garands, they were frequently halted before they could reach American lines. The semi-automatic fire, combined with the .30-06 rounds penetrating power, shattered Banzai charges and disrupted Japanese infantry tactics. Many Japanese officers considered the American rifle one of the biggest obstacles to their offensive doctrine. The Garand also proved invaluable in jungle environments where quick reaction time meant the difference between life and death. Ambushes were common, but American patrols could instantly return fire with overwhelming force, often suppressing or eliminating enemy fighters before they could exploit the advantage of surprise. Troops repeatedly described the M1 Garand as their lifeline, a weapon they trusted completely in every engagement. By late 1944, German infantry schools were openly instructing soldiers to expect American riflemen to fire several times faster than their own troops. Training manuals warned recruits not to underestimate the Garand's combination of accuracy and rate of fire. Several captured German documents even recommended prioritizing American riflemen as primary targets because their firepower made them disproportionately dangerous. The psychological impact was not limited to the battlefield. In many post-war interviews, German veterans expressed genuine respect, even admiration for the Garand. Some admitted they wished they had been issued a similar weapon. Others remarked that American infantry seemed unusually confident in battle, and many linked that confidence to the reliability and effectiveness of their rifles. As American forces pushed into Germany during the final months of the war, the Garand remained central to infantry operations. Urban combat in cities like Aachen and Cologne demanded fast, controlled firing at short to medium range, conditions in which the Garand excelled. American troops used the rifle to clear buildings, suppress snipers, and engage moving targets across rubble-strewn streets. Despite the harsh winter weather of 1944–45, the Garand continued functioning when other weapons, both Allied and Axis, struggled. Even after Germany's surrender, the rifle continued to play a major role in the Pacific until the end of the war. In Okinawa, on some of the toughest terrain and under some of the harshest conditions American troops ever faced, the Garand again proved its worth. The combination of power, reliability, and ease of use allowed exhausted soldiers to respond instantly to threats in an environment where hesitation could be fatal. By the end of World War II, over 5 million M1 Garands had been produced. These rifles armed the largest, most mechanized infantry force the world had ever seen. More importantly, they contributed directly to the success of U.S. ground operations across both major theaters of war. The weapon's influence did not end with 1945. It continued to serve in Korea, where its range and power allowed American forces to engage enemies across vast open hillsides and mountainous terrain. Once again, it proved more reliable and more effective than many of the weapons used by opposing forces. For many veterans, the Garand became a symbol of American resolve, a tool that gave ordinary soldiers extraordinary capability. When asked years later about the best equipment they carried into battle, countless veterans mentioned their helmet, their boots, and their Garand. It was more than a rifle. It was a trusted companion in the most hostile places on Earth. Modern firearms historians still consider the M1 Garand one of the most influential rifles ever designed. It changed infantry tactics, forced enemy nations to rethink their weapons development, and demonstrated the power of mass production combined with engineering innovation. Its success became a defining element of the American military identity during World War II. And for the Axis forces who faced it, the memory of that fast, relentless, and accurate semi-automatic rifle would last a lifetime. The legacy of the M1 Garand remains a testament to American industrial strength, military innovation, and battlefield adaptability.